You alright? You alright, Ruby?
Phil walks the tree line when the sun goes down. Boots in the gravel on the edge of town. Backpack rattles with a lantern and a map. Looking for the thing
behind it. And then 2 3-foot tall, 3.5-foot tall guardians with glowing red eyes were there.
Boys been chasing shadows in the midnight grass. But Phil just smiles at the cold night air. 'Cause something out there knows he's there. In the rustle of leaves.
I've experienced everything from angels to demons to ghosts to all kinds of other things I can't explain. I had my first Bigfoot encounter back around 2012 or something like that.
Chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight, from forgotten forests to the deserts deep, where the old bones hide and the spirits creep. With a camera and courage and a trail to see, he'll follow any legend through eternity. Yeah, the world's full of whispers most folks never see, but they all know.
I think disclosure is inevitable for one simple fact. This is true. UFOs are real. You can ignore the truth, you can distort it, you can hide it, you can lie about it, but you will never destroy it.
Lights dancing in a cold black sky. Track band branches where the tall grass sways. Heard something breathing in the forest.
A guy standing next to my bedroom door, only at night, and he stood there, and I was 3-4 years old, and my mom thought I was crazy.
And when the fire burns low and the coyotes sing, you can bet he's hunting something strange again. Through the static and dark, through the myth and the lore.
Obviously, I believe that these things exist after the stuff I've seen. So you can't say to someone who's seen stuff, these things aren't real. Obviously, 'cause, But yeah, people keep telling me they're not real, but I know they are.
wild and free.
Boo 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 boo. Where am I? Wait 1 minute. There I am. Hello, welcome to Friday Night Files. Hope you're having a great weekend so far. Well, at least work's over. That's the main thing. You can forget about that, unless of course you're a shop worker, and I'm a suck. I don't think I'd be very good anyway at like retail, the general public. Yeah, it's not something really that I would, it's just patience. You need a lot of patience, don't you? No, we don't have it, sir. No, I've told you we don't have it, sir. No. But have you checked out this podcast? It's really good. I might be able to hang out one of them. But anyway, yeah, I hope you're all keeping well. Thank you very much for joining. First of all, I'm going to have a little look at the comments. Let's see who has joined us. Oh, I just want to give a shout out also. Drew Hollings, our newest member of the channel. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it. Lovely having you on board. And it's very fortuitous, actually, because there's two things happening tomorrow. One of which is I'm going on a great ghost hunt. Now, it's going to be a bit of a funny one because I'm going to try and do it live, because I always try and do things live, but I don't have an awful lot of luck. I've got friends who can do a live, and it doesn't matter. They can be sitting on a toilet in a bunker somewhere. They can still stream live. I have trouble when I just go out into the woods. For some reason, the signal just goes, no, Phil, no, you're not having it. You're not going to be streaming live. And I'm like, and I'm just glitching all over the place. So I'm going to try it anyway. This one, it's an organized ghost hunt tomorrow. I'm going to do a live. I think it's organized by a group I haven't been with yet, so it's going to be a shock for them, because normally what I do is I tend not to go about with the main group. Any groups that like Wayne Seaton and Spookanori and other groups that I've been with know that I tend to sort of drift off on my own, because I think that I like to have an interaction, and I believe that these entities that we're dealing with, they're jesters, jokesters. They like to have a one-to-one, and I think when you pile in as a group of 10, 20, it doesn't always come up with very much. Occasionally it does, but not all the while. But so tomorrow I'm gonna try doing a live. Okay, it's a great place that I'm going to. Absolutely fantastic. It's an old school, basically, and something to do with leprosy years ago. Yeah. So me and a ghoulish part of me, anything that sort of like falls off, brilliant, because it's with me, the age I am, I mean, I'm very close to stuff falling off me, to be honest. But so I'm going to be trying that. So with the members, the channel members, I am going to be doing a special live earlier in the evening so that you can have a layout of the pad. All right, so be able to see where is what, what rooms where, what's going on, and get a bit of a layout, so you know what's going on. But later on in the evening, I'll be putting it out public. Okay, but keep an eye on my posts on YouTube and on Facebook, and I'll be putting that up there tomorrow. Also, quickly going to give a shout out as well for Susan Voosden from the GAPS team, Ghost and Paranormal Society, which is in Clacton-on-Sea. They have an event on tomorrow evening starting at 6 o'clock, which is going to be a carnival. And they've worked very, very hard, this group has, to put this carnival on. They're dedicated people. If you're a bit of a loss what to do tomorrow and you want to check out Carnival, 6 p.m, Clacton-on-Sea, go check it out. Okay, but other than that, let's crack on with the show, I say. Okay, we're going to be talking fairies, going to be talking gnomes, going to be talking Elves, and we're going to be talking with Kate Ray. Okay, she's a bit of an authority. She spent a long time chasing fairies and looking into the mythology. But also, do you know what? She's a hell of a researcher. I've been following a lot of her work, and she's diversified off, and she does a lot of paranormal work. She's a great researcher, and I'm very, very lucky to have her on. So everyone, please, in the comments, make her welcome. Let's bring her on right this minute. Let's have a look. Hello, Kate.
Good evening. I can't help but smile every time somebody says anything about fairies, because even to me it sounds ridiculous to my ears. But I'm gonna prove it different this evening.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. No, good news. I like the idea of fairies. I really do. I think it's I like the idea of fairies because it's very often in the past. Yeats was one which wrote an awful lot about fairies. He was very interested in them. They date back to the 13th century, evidently, in this country. King James the First, I believe, was quite adamant that fairies existed. And yeah, I just find them fascinating. And there's so many offshoots. We talk fairies, but is it true, Kate, that they're kind of like fairies, gnomes, elves, pixies? Are they all from the same class of entity?
Yeah, simply put, I mean, I often describe it as if you were to come across an alien and explain the animal kingdom, you would be explaining the difference between a giraffe and an ant, and that's where we're looking at. The word fairy is just all encompassing for the other for me. So it's those energies and entities that can come from the non-material world into the material realm, and that covers basically what fairies are.
Okay, right. Um, Kate, how did you get into all this? How did you start off? What was it? What was the catalyst that you sort of woke up one day and thought, oh, do you know, I'm gonna talk about fairies. Yes, I'm going to talk about the mythological entities, creatures that people call fairies. Was it
I
a moment that you just had, or was it something that came from your youth when you were younger?
I think that there's twofold to that. I think the phrase it was baked into me, so it's never ever been a subject that I've not understood on some level or other. Talking about fairies came when I became a paranormal investigator, and was shocked when I came into the field about how little understanding of non-human entities within a haunted environment there is. And I kept my mouth shut for a couple of years, because when I opened my mouth, I got ridiculed. And then I just thought, you know what? I genuinely believe that I need to be out there talking to people, because if we're going into haunting environments, how you deal with these non-human entities is very, very different to how you deal with the dead, or how you deal with, you know, uh, whatever your religious belief is, but the more demonic realm. Um, so yeah, it's baked in. The fairies, the ghosts, the weird, the strange, the 14 is all baked into my being. But talking about them was definitely a lot later.
Oh, okay. No, thank you for that. Thank you. When you were younger, did you have any paranormal, anything that happened to you paranormally? Because a lot of times, investigators and people that delve into the darker side of life, should I say, the more unknown, the more paranormal side of life, often have had already experiences in their life, maybe when they were younger, which they couldn't quite understand and stayed with them. Did you find that that was something that happened to you?
When I was a lot younger, I think I've experienced a suppression of memory. It wasn't till recently that my mum told me about me having there was an old man in the house that I was absolutely petrified of and wouldn't sleep with the lights off. But I didn't have anything, it wasn't one of these moments, a sort of a light bulb moment as a child where I just thought this is something that I've got to pursue. I mean, when you talk to any investigators within the world of weird, you have very distinct camps about where people have come from. So you have those people who have had a loss in their life, so they pursue the paranormal to try and gain some understanding of losing a loved one. You have those who have active paranormal activity in their childhood and they want to pursue answers from that. I mean, there's a couple of other strands, but I'm firmly in the camp that I'm the kind of person that I'm that curious that if somebody says don't push that button, damn right I'm going to push that button. And I think that the biggest curiosity in the world for me is that's not material. So it all kind of meshes and blends into it. And it wasn't until I was 15 that I had my first, I think, real tangible experience, and that was a fairy experience, which I think changed the course of how I viewed things and how I approach life in this segment of my life, in the paranormal.
All right, go on then. Spill the beans. What happened when you saw the fairy?
Oh, it's really early on in the talk for me to talk about this, but yeah, I'll
Yeah,
spill the
yeah,
beans.
let's do it. No, let's do it. We've got a lot to cover. Don't worry about that. So we can fill the time out. I'll pad it.
I mean, this is the point at where people who are watching and yourself will just go, okay, she's batshit crazy, you know, she's off a rocker with this one. And that was the kind of sentiment that I was met with for many years, and I kept it to myself for a good sort of 10-15 years without uttering a word to anybody. But I'd gone on a magical mystery tour with a group of friends. We were bored on a Friday night. We had no money. We're all skint, but somebody had a car with petrol. And we went to the Uffington Horse, the White Horse in Oxfordshire, and decided that we're going to drive through the night. We wanted to see the sunrise on the Uffington Horse. And we did that, and it was absolutely spectacular. It was a real magical moment. And I'd never heard of this place, but we took a walk down to Wayland Smithy, which is a prehistoric burial chamber, or so it's believed. And as we were walking down this pathway at dawn, I kept hearing a kind of a humming, whistling sound. I would say 50 plus to 100 beings or creatures or whatever making this sound. And I was confuddled about what was making the sound. So stopped every now and again to see if I could see in the hedgerows what was making it, and just saw things scurrying away. And eventually I rugby tackled a piece of grass where I'd seen something move, and put my hands either side of that piece of grass. And this creature sort of was looking over its shoulder at me. It was about the size of a large fist, toad-like body, mouse-like head, had fur going down its back. But before I shouted out my expletives and it squealed at me, I remember thinking, it's got tweed trousers on and a pair of braces. And I was just absolutely flummoxed about what I'd seen. So I jogged on ahead to my friends who had been walking at a quick step in front of me, who were a group of males, a little bit older than me, to get some verification that somebody had heard what I was experiencing. And I was met with a wall of hilarity, and for a long time after, I was ridiculed for my gnome experience.
Right. No, no, no,
Told you it was
no,
too
no. I
early. I
fully,
told you it was
fully,
too
no,
early.
no, no. I fully understand, and I think 100% credible. We got a right one here.
Aren't you?
No, 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 no. I fully, because the way it came across and the way you described it, yeah, I 100% believe you. And you know, people watching this, you know, sort of like if they've seen my sort of like other stuff, you know, kind of they're going to agree. They're going to be exactly the same as me, absolutely 100%, because your delivery and the description of it, you can tell by your body language. You know,
Yeah.
you can tell by your eyes. You know, what you saw is what you saw. Two things with wee folk, little folk. They they do preside from a history point of view. They do preside in rocks, but especially old burial mounds, or maybe chambers, burial chambers. They reside there. Very often, the precursor before seeing any wee folk is going to be music, which is strange. I find very odd. I haven't come across any myself. I haven't as yet come across any fairies. I would want to say that I've seen orbs, an awful lot of orbs. I want to say I've also seen what I could interpret as being fairies in camera footage. Yeah. But once again, it's very subjective from the point of view of, is it a bug? Is it a fairy? I do believe that fairies do exist. Because if you don't believe in them, then one will pass away. You have to believe in them. No, it's
I
quite
don't
true.
know. I don't think that's solely true. I don't think that's solely true.
I saw it on
And
a
you're right.
Disney film. I saw it on a Disney. It's got to be
Exactly.
true. It's got to be true, Kate.
Disney has got so much to answer for. Honestly, it is my massive bugbear, and fortunately, we're coming into an era where people are recognizing fairies for their truth. And it was, the Victorians and the Edwardians who first sexualized into these diminutive busty little women who sat on the side of absinthe bottles and granted wishes, and were a little bit naughty, a little bit showing leg and a bit showing bust in a time when it wasn't a thing that was done. And then Disney caught on to that, and furthermore furthermore just made it such a ridicule. And I mean, this is one thing. When you can imagine me going out on my first ever talk, my first ever conference, where I spoke about the history of fairies and where they come from, their origins, and they do predate written history. 13th century is the first sort of written data that we have in this country, but it's certainly not the only data that we have in this country that we can look back historically. So imagine me standing in front of a room of predominantly male paranormal investigators talking about fairies, and they're all expecting Tinkerbell. And luckily, by the end of it, I had done my job and convinced them that actually what they were dealing with was something much darker, and much more terrifying, and probably, as a paranormal investigator, a ghost hunter, something to be aware of above and beyond the spirits of the dead, because these things can come into our reality. I mean, I chuck in incubus and succubus in the fairy realm as well. I don't believe that they're in the demonic realm. I think that they're definitely fae.
Do you think Fae are? Do you think, in essence, that the Fae are dark entities? Then, do you think they are sort of? I don't like using the word demonic. I'm not going to use the word demonic. Do you think that they are more of a mischievous entity, or do you think that they are downright bad bunch?
I think, again, if we go back to the animal kingdom, if we take it in terms of, you've got snakes that can bite you, can keel over dead within an hour, and then you've got cuddly, cute little kittens. The range within the Fae realm is just that. You've got benevolent to malevolent, and you've got malevolent that absolutely surpasses anything of the demonic realm. I think the thing that we have to remember all the time is, though, these are tricksters all. That is their undercurrent personality throughout the whole Fae realm. It's like, trust nothing. If they tell you're going to give you a wish, you are definitely going to be paying for that somewhere down the line. Or they offer you some delicious food. I mean, this is a trope again that comes up in abductions and UFO. But if they offer you delicious food, do not take it, because that's some kind of trickery going off, and both historically as well as in modern encounters, people talk about this trickster element. And I quite like it, even in the darker end of the spectrum. I quite like that trickster element because it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us thinking.
It does, yeah. This is where we get a lot of bleed over. So, you mentioned that they're tricksters. I do know them to be, from the point of view that I don't know them, but I do understand that you have to have a certain amount of reverence if you ever met a fairy. And people don't. I think Kate will back me up here. Don't ever think that they are teeny, teeny, tiny, tiny little things all the while. They can be 6 foot. They can be even taller sometimes. You have a certain protocol with fairies. Fairies demand reverence. They demand that you are polite. I personally wouldn't ever give your name to a fairy, nor ask for the name from a fairy. Not that they would likely give you one anyway. Um, uh, but I do think that there's a bleed over when it comes to things like UFOs, aliens, that type of entity. And it's funny that, do you know what, Kate? Years ago, in the old times, in the old days, they didn't have such a thing as the tropes we have nowadays for aliens and UFOs and stuff. They used to see things in the sky. I mean, it was some of the first documented was the late 1800s with the blimps. So each era has a relevance to its own culture of what it sees, an interpretation. So years ago, people would see blimps. They wouldn't see saucers. They wouldn't see triangles. And then later on, with Adamski, they started seeing what was coined flying saucers. Now it's mostly triangles that people see. But all through the age, right from the early time, now I believe that with the fairy witnesses, it goes back to old cave drawings. There is old cave drawings which look very much like fairy entities. And those haven't changed throughout the decades, throughout the centuries. Those fairies haven't changed. I think that when we talk about there's similarities with these fairies and with modern day alien sightings, and more importantly, what happens with the aliens. They abduct people. People tend to be in a white room with white lights, with entities and beings which they wholly don't recognize as being human. Um, and if they do, they wholly don't recognize the fact that these so-called humans act or understand the humanity of the person, the feeling, the emotion, everything that goes part and parcel with abduction. They sometimes wonder, why are you screaming? Why are you crying? Why are you so upset? We also have, so if you can imagine with an abduction scenario, in fairy lore, we have also abduction scenarios, do we not, Kate? So,
We do.
we have where they will entice people off into a fairy realm. Now, I'm not talking another dimension. I'm not talking really about a altered state. I'm talking about, if you like, a shroud. I always equate the fairy realm with being a shroud on top of which we live. It embraces us. If you can imagine it, I think it embraces us, and it's all around us all the while. It's just we can't see them all the while. but they're around us. And I think the trickster element might have some bearing on people seeing ghosts, poltergeist activity. Maybe we could put that down to the trickster element of fairies themselves. Maybe the abduction scenarios that we see, that we know now, years ago they also knew in past history as being abduction into the fairy realm. Very often they would introduce a changeling. So they would take a human child, and they would then bring in a changeling. What do you know about the changeling part of things, Kate?
I mean that has just been that goes across Europe, that the notion of a changeling. And I mean the I suppose the psychological aspect of it, the humanization of it, is it's thought that when children were displaying mental health issues of all kinds of varieties, that they were then said to be a changeling, that the fairies had come along and swapped out their child for a fairy, basically. And I mean, I think there was a case, and it wasn't that long ago. I think it was in the late 1800s, where actually a child had been thrown into a fire, into a hearth, because the parents believed that it was a changeling baby. So it was something that was deeply within the consciousness of people. Right up until that time, when even at the start of industrialization, people were still believing that. Sometimes lumps of wood or pieces of coal left in a cot, and the parents still believed that that was their child. One of the theories, a good friend of mine, Thomas Sheridan, has, and it's one that he's researched, is definitely the fact that he believes fairies cannot reproduce. They live in a squandered environment, an environment which isn't conducive to fertility of both plants, animals, and of themselves. And they would take human babies, or surrogates, human fairy hybrids, and then leave them to human beings to raise, and then take them back into fairyland. Again, if you look at the psychology, that could be parents losing children in inexplicable ways. It's kind of playing with those ideas and thinking of them in terms of psychology, and then thinking them in terms of could this actually be happening, and where did these notions come from? Because the notions just didn't come from nowhere. There must have been some grounding for these kind of stories in folklore, and often they are incredibly gruesome. I mean, even the stories where we see fairy marriages with human beings often doesn't end well. These it's either war or death that's brought about by these interactions. And going back to what you were saying about the feeling that fairies are all around, I do get what you're saying. I think there is a definite truth in that, but I like to see them as the kind of dimension that's butting up closest to us. So if we have multi-dimensions, they're one of the closest dimensions to us, so they can kind of hop in and out of that dimension, and make themselves known to us by coming back from their dimensional plane into our dimensional plane. I think some of them do stay on the material plane, but I think a lot of them do sort of pop in and out, just as spirits are on different dimensional planes. Spirits of the dead are.
Yeah, I think the idea of changelings, and it was quite often that it used to happen. So you would get they would take a human baby, and they would nurse it until it got older, but the parents very rarely ever saw it again, their own child.
Mhm.
And this has happened. There was a famous case which happened not that long ago. I can't remember precisely when. And believe it or not, it was it was a wife that was in an accident, and the wife had an accident anyway. She kind of she disappeared for a period of time, had an accident, fell down a ditch, something happened, and then she reappeared. When she reappeared, and I believe I want to say it was the 1980s, but if someone in the comments wants to Google it, what basically happened was the wife came back, and but the husband absolutely adamant that it wasn't his wife. He said,
Yeah.
"No, no, 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 no. It's she's different. She's changed. She's totally different. You know, she's not the same as she was, and not just from the point of view of she was in an accident and she emotionally changed, and she's kind of like, you know, she finally came to the conclusion that, hey, look, I married a prat. No, it's not that. It's she was fundamentally different. Physically, she was different, and you know, things like moles and that weren't there anymore on her skin. Um, I think your friend saying that with the fairies that they can't breed themselves. I think there's a thread of truth there, and I think they need us, and I think they take one of us because it helps with their stock. It helps because otherwise they're not in vast numbers. A lot of these, I don't think, and it helps with their stock and their bloodlines. And it kind of supports them, if you like.
Mm.
So I do think that is quite true. It's the same that I've heard with werewolves as well.
Mhm.
Werewolves amongst themselves, a alpha male won't and cannot breed. So they have to actually take a human male to breed with the female. Um, so you know, and that, as I understand it, is absolute fact. But um, you know, once again, it's subjective. You know, but yeah, and the changeling, you're right. I mean, you know, when they like in the case of throwing them into a fire because no, it's not my baby. You know, throw them into fire. A lot of times when they used to throw them into a fire, what actually used to happen was the child, the changeling, used to be heard to cackle in the fire and then shoot up the
Chimney.
chimney. And a lot of cases, it was only then that the human baby would come back and be outside the front door. That
Mhm.
used to happen. That was written about quite a few times. That was like one way of having your own child back. For some reason, that would bring it back. But you know, it's a hell of a test, isn't it? You know, it's a hell of a thing
Mhm.
to do. You know, to test. Um, do you think that with these fairies and fae, do you think that they are, in your opinion, aware that um, aware that we are of interest? You know, that aware that we are interested in them? Do you think that they because they don't seem to come across with any communication as such. They don't seem to sort of you would imagine they're quite sentient beings. They're free thinking. They have certain rules and regulations, obviously. You know, they have certain rules which they abide by. Um, but they don't seem to creep into our world from the point of view of, hey, look, you know, I'm a fairy and I'd like to communicate with you, Kate. And you know, I'd like to share and I'd like for you to share with us. Is it the one-way street where they know about us, but we don't know about them, do you think?
No, I think it's completely the opposite, and I think a lot of the time we put down their interactions with us as spirits of the dead and as demons, quite simply. I mean, I'm part of the Fairy Investigation Society, and Dr. Simon Young, who heads that up, has put together a lifelong body of work, which is the Fairy Census, which is multiple books now of people talking about their fairy experiences anonymously, and predominantly it was the UK. It's now global, so people can go on the fairyist.com and give their accounts of interacting with fairies. And from the perspective of a ghost hunter, and me going into haunted buildings, whether that be on events or whether that be on private cases, fairies do have very specific things that they will do that the spirits of the dead don't. And I actually have come to the conclusion that there are more interactions through ghost hunters and paranormal investigators with fairies than there are spirits of the dead. I think spirits of the dead are the ones who are lacking in communication and are often very, very weak in their forms of communication because they're not dimensionally that close to us. So fairies, as you said earlier, will do things like prior to the word poltergeist, which is a relatively new word, that kind of activity of pelting of rocks, of opening of cupboards, of plaiting of the hair of horses and cows, that would have been put down to angered house brownies or goblins. So that was very much within the fairy realm, and there were motifs that will carry through on all kinds of physical hauntings. And this is predating Christianity, so if we take off that religious lens, that we now will go, oh, the 3 scratches, that's got to be a demon. Well, no, that has been documented as fairy activity. Like I said before, incubus and succubus, now documented under a Christian lens of demonic. That was definitely something that was documented as a beautiful fairy lady that would come to you and in mid-act would turn into a hag. That's something that way predates Christianity. So I do think that they communicate with us, especially those who are out communicating with what they think is the spirits of the dead. They do communicate back. On the other hand, they have a really good way of communicating with people who are creatives. So oftentimes they will use creative people as muses and vice versa. So there are pieces of music that are attributed to fairy interactions. There are paintings that are attributed to fairy interactions. I know myself and others who have written books attribute partly, I part joke that I channeled my particular characters, that I was actually gifted the book and the story and channeled their story through what I wrote. And that, again, we're talking about ancient times, we're talking about the Greek muses, which were part of the fairy realm. The fairy realm seems to spring up around that notion of having muses that were kind of demigods that would come down and instill kind of creative gifts or philosophical gifts in people. I think we're communicating all the time. It's just whether we know it or not. I believe that orbs are to do with fairy and to do with others under that supernatural branch as well. But that for me, orbs is beings coming through from interdimension into our dimension, and that the first way that they can do that is to travel in their purest of form, which is light. That's how it comes through into our dimension, and that's why we get orbs. And I'm not talking about the regular ghost hunting, bits of dust and you need pledge or whatever, but ones that you see with your eyes that you can interact with, that have a sentience to them. I think that's those beings coming across into this really dense, heavy plane that we live on is not the same plane that they live on. It's a lot lighter. They don't have the density or the materiality that we do. So coming through, that's the easiest way. I'm rambling now. I do apologise. I know I've gone off on a tangent.
No, really interesting. Very interesting. No, absolute. No, I like the idea that there's a correlation between, them acting or manipulating people via ghosts.
Mhm.
It's the absurdity that I find runs through an awful lot of paranormal and cryptozoology, and also with UAP. It's the absurdity, and fairies seem to have this absurdity about them as well. They seem to, and I'm quoting from stuff that I've read, because I've done a little bit of research, not a lot, but a little bit, and they seem to act in quite a absurd manner from the point of view of childish games, playing, moving objects. There is a darker side to them for sure. That is for sure, which is very different. But they're not so different when you think of aliens. They're quite dark as well. But it's difficult. Do you find it difficult to actually have a if you like, a table? If I was to say, right, Kate, the Sandown Clown, okay, when those children saw the Sandown Clown, and in the Isle of Wight, I think it was, and it was absolutely absurd. It looked like a clown, square head, had like rectangular eyes, and kind of spoke with a microphone. That when I first saw it, it just saw this hand, like a gloved hand coming up. Now, to me, I would have interpreted that as a fae. Yeah, but it seems to be across the board that people have interpreted it as being an alien entity of sorts. But I would have, when I first heard about it and read about it years and years and years ago, I thought, my word, that sounds really fae. That sounds so fae. Is there a benchmark that you have as a group, to say, right, Phil, right, we're gonna put this, like that Sandown Clown, right, just say you didn't hear about it, just forget you heard about Sandown Clown, but just say that I came up and said, oh, I've got this account, and this like hand came up, and it's a square face and triangle eyes and da. Is there a list? Is there like maybe a list of rules or credentials that you have to match to categorize maybe a paranormal sighting as a fae or a fairy, or as from an alien to a fae or fairy? Is there a list of credentials that you have, markers that you have as a group?
There's only one. There's only one, and that is if that person who had that experience felt that it was a fairy experience above anything else. And that is the only difference. So if we receive reports, or if I often, because I talk about it so often out in public, I will get people sidling up to me going, I've never told anybody this before. I know I'll get ridiculed, but this is the experience I've had. And I've had people tell me about them seeing twig men, men made of twigs flying through the air, and just a whole raft of absolutely extraordinary tales that these people and experiences these people have had. And I'm not there to judge anybody, but the only criteria that I can see from the Fairy Investigation Society, and this is a personal criteria for me, is what made you think that was fairy? Because if you look at the fairy census, I'm going to be giving a talk tomorrow about this actually in public, but when you look at the fairy census of modern encounters, you have there is one in there where a couple in a car experience a small woman by the side of the road who is dressed described as dressed funnily, like not in this era's clothes. And when they turn the car back round, it's at night. So when they turn the car back round, she's nowhere to be seen. Now, if I was given that as a paranormal investigator with that hat on, would I think, is that a ghost? They very much felt like it was fairy, but there was no kind of markers. There was no wings. There was no ears. There was no, there was no interaction. So there was no markers of interactions. But that couple felt like it was an encounter with a fairy. There are other ones in there that are definitely sound apparitional. where these beings are see-through and disappear and dissipate. There are ones that definitely have strong motifs and tropes with alien abduction, so shape-shifting owls. So anybody who knows about alien abduction, and that terrifies me, the whole owl thing with alien abduction. That there's those crossovers as well. So when this data is received, and when I receive stories firsthand from people, it's not about me judging whether it's fairy or not. It's about that person saying this was definitely fairy.
Oh, okay. All right. Right. In that case, have you noticed that with these witnesses, is there any commonality in their traits from personality wise? I've found a lot of people I've spoken to who've had experiences and they've been on the show. And yes, for I have seen this, and yes, for I have seen that. A lot of them have been on the neurodivergent spectrum
Mm.
in some form, to some degree, whether it be autistic or ADHD. Have you found that as well?
It's not something I've not really queried people's particular labels in that kind of view, but I know that a very good friend of mine, Dr. Neil Rushton, he has done extensive personal research into even mild altered states of consciousness. So when we've come across people who have spoken about their experiences specifically with fairies, the majority of those experiences are when people are in a slight shift to an extreme shift of altered states of consciousness. So, for instance, somebody who is taking a regular dog walk, walking through a forest, the brain's just drifting in and out. They're not really concentrating on their environment. They're not really 100% there in their environment. And the brain state is not it's a relaxed brain state that they're in. Right the way through to people who take ayahuasca or DMT, having the same experiences of elves and little people. So that there is that seems to be a theme or a thread that other people have picked up on. So it's a particular brain state at time. I don't know whether the overarching of brain state is something. I mean, for many years I was a teacher, and I was a teacher with students who had emotional behavioural difficulties, and a lot of the time they were on various different spectrums. Um, so to be able for me to see that and to pinpoint it in people, it's not something that I've particularly clocked, but I've not consciously sought that out, and I don't know whether that's something that is particularly useful as data either, because I think all kinds of people have all kinds of odd experiences, and I was talking about this the other day as well about people saying, I've got a logical mind and I've never had one of these experiences. And then when you actually start talking to them about, the whole raft of experiences that you can have under this kind of umbrella, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's happened to me." I've known who was ringing on the house phone. I picked it up and it's somebody who I haven't spoken to in 10 years, but I knew it was them before I picked up the phone. All those kind of weird things. And then they start understanding that actually they have had some very strange experiences, but how they retain those experiences are very different. I've got male friends who have had some extraordinary experiences talk to me directly after having these experiences. I can talk to them about it 6 months later and say, can you remember when, just chatting with them about an experience that they've had, and they can't remember it until I jog their memory on details. It's like the logical brain takes over and they just dismiss it. So I think we all have odd experiences, all of us.
No. Yes, miss.
Sorry. That was my teacher hat.
Yeah, no, we do. One of the most common and flipping scary experiences I have. I can be driving along, driving to work, driving somewhere, usually on the way to work, and I always pass a speed camera. There's one speed camera, and 9 times out of 10, I always think when I get to work, oh no, did I go through that at 30 miles an hour or not? I cannot remember the roundabout. I cannot remember going through the speed camera. It's like I'm in an altered state of consciousness on that
Yeah.
journey. Your brain just kind of switches off.
Oh.
You know, and that's kind of like very common, and really quite sort of scary. But yeah, no, you're quite right. It's I can imagine you being a teacher. Funny enough, I can, you know what I mean. I can imagine you being my teacher. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can honestly. You just got that. Yeah, yeah. Behave yourself, Philip. You in the back.
Oh, no, I was a
um,
cool teacher. I was a cool teacher.
I bet you were. I bet you were. Yeah, yeah. I had a couple of cool teachers. And funny enough, well, one was Mr. Bustamanti. He was a maths teacher, and I used to enjoy it. Believe it or not, I was a weird kid. I used to enjoy maths more than I did English. My English was terrible. I had a terrible stutter when I was a kid, so I had to unlearn the stutter, which was very difficult. And I had a very patient teacher to teach me that. And also, my spelling was for crap. Honestly, I spelled phonetically, and it was very much a case at school. I know it's not anything paranormal, but at school I would like write, the cat sat on the mat, DE would be instead of THE, very phonetic, like that, And I remember the headmaster called my mum in once, and it was awful, really. I mean, such racist days, because I'm mixed blood anyway, right? But they called my mum in, and my mum got very upset about this. Back in the 70s, this was, and the head teacher said to mum, said, uh, "Can I ask, Mr. Cotwell, can I ask, are you married to a West Indian?" And she was like, "No." Well, your son's got. I was quite happy writing like a Rastafarian, It's like, I didn't know any, and I'm still very much like that with my writing, and like reading is always a bit sort of awkward, not the greatest, So yeah. Anyway, that's my thing over. One thing I wanted to ask was, oh, also another thing. Look, listen, people at home, right, in the comments. I know we've got quite a few. All right, we have got. Roxy, yeah, thank you very much for being admin. Kate, hello, Kate. We've got Jeremy 060. Hello, all. Hello, Jeremy. There we go. Let's put you up like that. Hello. Oh, nice beanie. Nice, yeah, okay. We've got got Jeremy. Drew Hollings, yeah. Hello, Drew. Good seeing you. Of course. And thank you for the gems as well, Dawn. Sasquatch sister. She's lovely. So's Kate. Let's have a look. Now look in the comments if you've got a question, all right, anyone, and I know you've got questions, all right, put a capital Q so that we can recognize, and it will, from all the crowd, we can kind of like recognize, all right, we've got a question, and then we'll bring your question up a little bit later, right, in a little while. I've got a question. If that's all right, please, Kate. Could you talk about encountering fuzzies? I've never come across this before. Chaotic, dark, psychic dust balls with big violet eyes that can shrink down to hide under sofas. Now, first off, do they pay rent?
No.
And secondly, right, no, they don't. All right, they don't pay rent. Right, that's cheeky, isn't it? Secondly, you've questioned whether they are traditional fairy pets, human conjured egregores, or part of an alien being. Where do you currently stand on the Fae and the alien connection? Where do you stand on that?
Oh, I used to really enjoy the theory that fairies were alien and it was just they were presented in a way that people could understand them. So people understood fairies, small humanoids, that they had difficulty in understanding sort of the classic grey or so these beings would present themselves in a way that our brain could understand them. From the 1950s, we saw a drop off of fairy encounters and we saw an increase in alien encounters, small beings, big eyes, big heads, humanoid creatures. So there is that theory of, is it how we are interpreting what we're seeing in a way that we can understand and compute? Because believe it or not, we are really quite limited in our senses and how we interpret what we see. Or is it that these beings are actually presenting to us in a way that we would understand them within a modern context, whether that be, pre-industrial revolution, post-industrial revolution? I am coming more to the conclusion that they are separate. There is a separate element, and although that there are crossover ideas and philosophies within alien and fairy realm, I think that they are separate. I think that fairies very much are very established and very much there, and aliens are very established and very much there. So that's where I am at the minute. I am a movable feast. I am all for having my mind changed on any different subject. It's because who knows who are any of us to say that this is factual? Because if it was and we knew it, we could prove it, we could put it out to the world, and then it wouldn't be exciting, and we could all go home, have a bath, and have some dinner. So I like to keep it curious.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, yeah, keep it curious, and I like the part of all bath together. That's all right. Yeah. No, big bath though. Yeah. Bagsy me, soap on the rope. Do you think it is something that is? What's your feelings on the creation of an egregore? Just for people at home, egregores are thought forms. A famous one was the Philip experiment, which was an egregore that supposedly was created amongst a group of researchers and scientists. Or scientific, and there was there was one scientist, I think, now present, and they were in a room and they gave this character, make-believe character, a background story. They gave this character called Philip, funny enough, lovely name. They gave him a family. They gave him parentage. They gave him a place of birth. They gave this made up character a personality, and it turned out that under in caps laboratory, in a room, basically they were in a room when they did it, and they used to meet up regularly in this room to give the background story. They evidently there was table tapping that happened. I believe it was table tipping as well. Things would be moved in the room. That's the basis of an egregore. It's a group of people that create, as opposed to a tulpa, which is usually a single person that's creating. But that's done through a different method, slightly. But where do you stand, Kate, on the fact of egregores? And do you think that when we deal with the paranormal, I'm going on a ghost hunt tomorrow, do you think that my sensibility, my want to see something could manifest something?
Yeah, and I think if you flip the Phillips experiment on its head and actually viewed it as, did that entity put all those ideas into the minds of those people to keep his profile alive, if you like, and it wasn't an egregore that they birthed into the ether, that it was a spirit that was actually there who gave them all the information they needed, that was actually the truth. I mean, the other side of it is, was it a complete trickster who was just hanging around and thought, right, I'm going to be Philip, I'm going to be the person who is center of that experiment. Egregores is a really good one, and it's a recent one which is picking up traction. And I am quite overjoyed that people are now taking this as a serious entity problem, if you like. Egregores are usually created through spiritual or religious groupings of people. Witches create egregores to keep their covens safe. So these egregores become watchers. And it's only when these egregores are kind of unemployed, if you like, when they aren't given jobs or they're forgotten about in terms of a coven or, the dispelling of a coven or any kind of religious group, that they can grow a sentient nature. And obviously they have no real sense of what to do or how to do it. So it's kind of, what do they become? And which makes them a bit chaotic, which would, and quite dangerous, I think. With a tulpa, yeah, to a certain extent, I think that people can create instant tulpas. I think that's usually under traumatic circumstances. I may be completely wrong about this, but this is my feelings about researching. But the tulpas that I've come across have been people who have had early and prolonged childhood trauma. Usually within close proximity, either domestic abuse or abuse that's close by, and they create these tulpas to keep them safe. So these tulpas are usually scary entities, humanoid, but often not. Some can be created to be like monsters in the closet, and they create these things usually unconsciously to keep them safe from whatever traumatic and horrendous things that are happening to them. And when I've encountered them as a paranormal investigator, they are tulpas that have stayed with that person into adulthood, but aren't given any sense of what to do anymore because it's not a small child that is receiving that kind of environment or that kind of trauma. And they become not problematic as much as quite scary to the adult because the adult doesn't remember them from their childhood. I've had a couple where people have been desperate because they have been seeing very dark entities, usually men type entities, shadow figures that will come to them that make them feel very uneasy and very, very frightened. They will enter into their dreams and they will affect them on a daily basis. And it turns out that these are their tulpas. And when talking to people, the way you can figure out whether it is a tulpa or whether it is actually a dark shadow figure is a tulpa will usually come back into somebody's life with great force when that person is entering into say a contract, a relationship contract with somebody who they know is not going to be good for them. Or if they're entering into something in their life, maybe it's gambling or drinking, something that is not going to be good for them. So they're falling back into that danger zone that they had when they were a child. And when that person's happy and buoyant, they don't see or hear anything from that entity. But it's when things are either going into or are deep into this kind of traumatic state again that tulpas come about. Like I say, I'm a movable feast. I get snippets of information from all over, and it kind of either clicks into place or changes my mind again on these things. But that's where I am right now with that bit of research.
I'll clip that. Excellent. Have you still got your friend? Let's say, have you still got a friend? I feel that you've got a helper, a friend. Do you have a friend or helper? Maybe an imaginary one.
I've had a raft of things. I stupidly, one of the things that I did when I first started, I started becoming a ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, because I was absolutely terrified of ghosts. I'm not going to lie. That was, and I wanted to face my fear. And stupidly, very, very early on, and I'd recently just moved from an incredibly haunted house that I denied to the hilt that was haunted, but it was terrifying. But early on, I'd said in my mind, if spirits can read my thoughts, whether it be through energy or whether you can actually hear my thoughts, I want you to do something so dramatic that it can be undeniable that you've heard this conversation in my head. And I was woken up at the classic 3:30 in the morning to a bouquet of flowers being thrown across the bedroom and taking out a whole raft of things. And I vowed never again to like ask those stupid questions. And from then, I mean, I've had lots of weird experiences, and none frighten me anymore. Some shock me, and sometimes I get a bit staticky about them, but I don't get frightened anymore. I had one particular energy that was about. I actually think that I picked it up from the mausoleum at the Hellfire Caves, and that used to pop in and out. That was very, very fairy. It would pull covers off the end of the bed, and didn't feel malevolent. It just felt like a little kid wanting attention. And it would come through when I was out ghost hunting. It'd come through on different bits of equipment, and I had to ignore it because I'm a team lead with an events company. So I had to ignore it coming through, but I knew exactly what it was, and I knew its name, and it would come through on various bits and bobs and say its name. And it, yeah, that kind of dissipated. But the funniest one, when I was writing my first book, I had gone to a number of mind, body, and spirit things, do's, whatever they're called, and I had psychic mediums who had never met me before, knew nothing about me, and I'd had 3 different people on 3 different occasions come up to me and say, "You've got, like, little people around you," and and they were really confused, and I knew exactly who it was, and I knew exactly what was going off. I had all these kind of small energies around me, and I did enjoy that, and from time to time, that kind of rocks up, and I'm sounding like a nutter again, aren't I?
No, 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 no. Clip that as well. Yeah, no, no, not at all. Not at all. I went to the mausoleum on top of the hill, above the Hellfire Caves. Um, and the urn in the middle is, you know, where the beating
Yeah.
heart, yeah, where it was beating heart. I don't believe it was there still. I think it's gone now. But if you walk around from where the gate is, where you look in to the left,
Mhm,
walk around. There's a little wall. There's a wall, and I go through the gap in the wall and turn right, and just up that way you'll see a tree.
mhm,
Very distinctive tree. It's all bent over. Looks like it's a dead tree. But I had a very interesting um sort of run in with an entity there, funny enough, by that
mhm,
mausoleum just beyond the wall, because this little pathway runs along the wall, and then it brings you out where the church is at the top, you know, just there. But I had a very, very strange run in just there, funny enough. I want to say one honest thing that I was told. I was working with a guy, he'll be anonymous, let's call him Dave. But he said to me, and this is before I was like even mentioned about paranormal stuff to him, because I normally, whenever I meet somebody, I always say, you know, hi, how you doing? Yeah, my name's Phil. Yeah, has anything happened to you in the past that you would say has been paranormal? He said, "Do you know what, Phil?" He said, you're gonna think I'm crackers." I was like, "No, no, not at all, no." Um, and he said, I was walking along a pavement near to where he lived, and he lived right by, let's say, the A10. Okay, which is quite a big road, you know, goes a long way up. And he was walking along there from the traffic lights, walking up, and he passed these shrubberies on the right hand side, just some trees and shrubs by the side of the road. And it was at night time, well, twilight. Anyway, there were street lights, and he said I stopped and I saw this little chap pop up from behind a bush, red pointy hat on, and he just waved and then dropped down again. And Dave said, "I swear I saw that." He said, "I swear." he was working for the same company I was working for, and he told our boss, and our boss is like kind of very black and white, didn't believe in any of that stuff. He's very, I mean, he won't mind me saying, he kind of like, he looked like a Rottweiler chewing a marble, my boss. I mean, sort of like, it scares the bejesus sometimes out of me, it's like, but he told, the boss that, and the boss was like, what are you on about? Like, but he's adamant, absolutely. Dave was adamant that he saw this, and I said, "Are you interested in the paranormal?" He said, "No." I said, "Have you got garden gnomes?" "No, I don't like them, to be honest." I said, Do you know that's the strangest thing to actually imagine? That's the strangest thing, most absurd thing to uh, 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 fester in your imagination, or if you were going to lie about something and you wanted to make sure that lie was totally unbelievable, that would be a classic lie. But that's what made it so believable, because it was so strange, it was so odd. That's what I find like really odd with this whole thing. It's like just also absurd. It's almost as if these entities that are playing with us will show us in such a manner that they know that when we come to recount the stories, when we come to tell our tales, nobody will believe us because it appeared to us in such an odd manner. It's almost as if it's done on purpose. There's a methodology behind it. I'm going to make sure that it's not just a case where I'm going to come up and I'm going to shake your hand and introduce. No, 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 no. I'm going to take a vase of flowers. I'm going to hurl them across the room, or a bouquet of flowers and hurl them across the room. It's really odd stuff, which would, to recount somebody, if you were going to go and like kind of see a police officer and say, well, actually, make a statement because this happened. Odd, absolutely odd. The strangest thing.
Just can
Right.
I
I
just
just
go on
want,
from can I just go
yeah,
on from that point
crack
very, very
on there.
quickly? Because it's a really good point about us thinking it's odd. But actually, there are lots of different folklore stories about fairies finding humans really odd. That how silly are we that we have a clock to get us up in the morning, and then we get dressed in suits to go to work, and we get in these cars, and we're all time limited, and we have all these funny structures in our life, and we get all flustered, and we're all very, very serious. And the fairy realm definitely doesn't have those kind of structures. So I don't know whether that trickery is a conscious trickery. I think it's just their nature. It's just, the animals wouldn't understand our structure, and we spend thousands, billions of pounds, globally on looking at animal structures and animal psychology and how they interact with each other, coming up with all these theories and hypotheses. But animals wouldn't do it to us. And I think it's the same with fairies. They don't have the same values and moral base as we do. And they find us utterly ridiculous. So a little gnome popping up and waving is to them a perfectly pleasant thing to do, they wouldn't be thinking, "Oh, we're going to make them look like a right wally when they go into work and tell this tale." I don't think that, although they would find that hilarious, they would find that really hilarious. But I don't think it's a real conscious thing that they do. I think it's just an unconscious part of who they are, the spirit of them. That they are closer to nature than we are. We look at a lens that we are so removed from understanding our role within the natural environment, that we don't understand fairies anymore. Maybe fairies are there to help us remember what it is to be part of everything. Part of, we are animals. We are part of the animal kingdom, and we forget with our stupid little suits and our silly little jobs, and our bits of paper money that mean so much to us. And I'm sounding like a hippie, and you can clip that one there.
Yeah, we'll clip that definitely. Yeah, you are. You're a proper tree hugger. No, that's really that's really cool. And you are you are completely right, miss. From the point of view, all right, of we are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, look, we're trying our best to spend millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and time and effort finding and sending rockets out there into space, when look, we've hardly explored this planet. All we've done is we've kind of like just devastated this planet, and now we're deciding to try and migrate, to another planet to try and devastate that one, presumably. I mean, we know very little about the ocean. I'd prefer them spend money on the ocean to learn what is going on in the ocean, and some of the species that live down there that we don't know as yet, than I would us going out into space. Although it's intriguing, it is intriguing, spaces. But in the grand scheme of things, let's find out about our own planet first, I say. Let's find out about us, because it's the planet which we live on, and it reflects us as a species, because we're living on this planet. It reflects us. So yeah, pardon me. So I think that yeah, absolutely right. Do you think that it's a case that it's an existential consciousness then? Do you think that why they can't understand us is because existentially it could be a manifestation of our subconscious? I'm of a feeling that our consciousness is external to us. I've spoken about this before. People that know me will know that now they'll mute it probably, but our consciousness is external. This is just a processor, and we dip out of a field of consciousness that is running around you, Kate, right at this moment. Okay, running around you is running around me, and at any one time, that information running around you is running around me at the same time. We are able to dip in, we are able to dip out. It's a form of communication, and it's able to take from us as we are able to take from it. Hence, we're able to have these deja vu moments, or we do have these deja vu moments. Hence, I've often said with people that are in comas, and yet, so the synapses, there's nothing firing, the hippocampus, nothing, completely flatline, but they're able to, if they do gain consciousness, to recount episodes where their loved ones come in and kissed them on the forehead, held their hand, and a nurse has come in and sort of, given them meds or whatever. They say, thank you. Well, hang on a minute. How did you know I was in the room? I think it's an external manifestation of consciousness. But do you think that it could possibly be? Do you think it could possibly be that these entities? Now I'm going to wrap them up into one single origin. So with fairies, with ghosts, even with aliens. Do you think that it's an external manifestation of our consciousness, going along the lines of a tulpa, that type of thing?
I think, I mean, everything's to play for. I think that the key to this is that we're having this discussion. So, I mean, everything's to play for. When I think about the field of the 14, I see a tree of branches. Going back to tree hugging now, we're not. So you've got your cryptozoology, you've got your UAPs, you've got your alien abductions, you've got miracles, raining fish. You've got all these things that are outside of material understanding, and things that cannot have at this moment in time data collated from through science. So because science doesn't have the data, they don't really exist. That's how it goes. So everything that's under this weird umbrella, and they are all branches of the same tree. And I think one of the problems that we have right now is that we don't have joined up discussions between the cryptozoology community, between the paranormal community, because we're all gatekeeping information. We're all sat there in our little ivory towers under these headings going, no, it's got to be a ghost, and it's only a ghost, and no, it's got to be this because, that's why Nessie exists. And everybody's gatekeeping lots of information. And it's not when you go until you have sort of broader conversations that you can understand that there are so many similarities that you can start opening up. And then you can start opening up again into the fact of, is it all reality? You know, I often joke that we are spooks in meat suits. We are literally energetic beings that are stuffed into a material body to have this experience. And if that's so, the possibilities are mind blowing. And I do agree with the analogy that, you know, that we are led by an external consciousness, and in spirituality you can see that as an interchange between soul and spirit. And there are lots of far greater people than me that talk about it in terms of, we are literally avatars for a higher spiritual being that's playing out these experiences safely. So I'm not actually, I'm a playing character for somebody who is in another dimension, who's wanting to have Kate as an experience having this conversation with you. So once you start going down the rabbit holes, the Warren is dark and deep, and you never ever come out, and everything is interconnected. It's mind blowing.
You're quite right, miss. Honestly, I agree with you as well. I do. I think that, you know, it's so fractured, these groups. And that's part of the problem. And, you know, there's a lot of backbiting and, well, not backstabbing. So, and there's a lot of, you know, with the groups, as you say, there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. And I think until we realize, like you say, that there is a central, not, let's not say origin, but until we realize that there's a central human manifestation which results in the same consciousness, and results in the same responses throughout all of these different fractured groups, from cryptids to UFO aliens to ghost paranormal. Because at the moment, you know, it's quite true. You know, the aliens don't really get on with the cryptids, although very often, whenever there's been an alien landing and the UFO scene, there's very often a Bigfoot scene at the landing site, you know. But those two groups don't particularly like each other. They don't kind of like get on the whole. And you know, with the paranormal groups, I mean, they just like hate everyone, I think, you know. You know, so it's just sort of one of those things. But you know, it's talking about just quickly talking about Bigfoot. You once brought helium balloons and rainbow drops to a haunted warehouse to playfully interact, right, with child spirits. Now, first of all, got to ask you and be honest: did you eat any of the rainbow drops yourself?
We forgot about them. By the end of the night, they were still there in the bags, and we forgot to take them with us. We left them on location. I was
Oh,
gutted.
what the hell! Honestly, very
Gutted.
disappointing, miss. Also, how does this traditional playful approach compare to the modern flashing cat balls that cause so much drama in paranormal community? You know, oh, the flashing cat ball, it must be some movement, you know. How does that compare, do you think? Well, I mean, basically, what I'm saying to you is, should we wind back the clock? I've got like a lot of paranormal, and I'll be taking tomorrow REM-Pod, the obligatory K2, but I don't like the K2 which lights up with the lights. I've got a trimeter, you know, tri-field
Yeah.
meter, so I use that. It's more accurate. I'll be taking thermal camera, all the gubbins as well. You know, I'll have a backpack on. I'll have flipping, you know, my Raiders of the Lost Ark hat on. I'll have, you know, I'll be all kitted out, you know. But do you think we should really hark back to more traditional methods? I think the best tool for paranormal detection is really ourselves.
Mhm. I agree, and I think it's a difficult question, because I sit on the fence all the time. I sit on the fence all the time with all bits of kit, and I'm not particularly in love with flashy gadgets, and I'm not particularly in love with any kind of equipment. The only one that I really do like, and it's not one that I get to do very often or with people who I trust, is I love a spirit board. I love working on a spirit board. However, I think I'm the kind of person, and what you were talking about with the helium balloons and the rainbow drops was for the Supernatural UK, which is a YouTube paranormal investigation channel. And I'm the kind of person, I will throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at it. So once I kind of get to grips with an investigation, I will think of every possible way that I can get some kind of interaction or some kind of communication going. So I'm not the kind of person who will see a K2 go off and get excited, or hear something on an EVP and get excited, but when you get a sequential rhythm of things going, so you'll get, and I know the contentious, but you get a cat ball that's actually physically moved, and then you get, your rainbow drops get rustled about, and then you get a REM pod go off, and then you get something else and something else. And then it becomes interesting. It's not just a piece of equipment that you're thinking, is this, I'm not quite sure whether these things actually detect anything. When you get a sequence of things happening, that's when I start getting excited. So it's kind of horses for courses. If you love your equipment, I'm throwing no shade on anybody. As I've said before, if we actually knew the answers to these things, if anybody could actually stand up and categorically say, I know 100% and I can prove to you that these things work all the time, every time, then would none of us be doing this. It would just be boring. It would be like fishing. There would only be a few people left doing it, wouldn't they? Because it's not exciting, because we're out there, we don't know whether we're fishing for a shark with a shoelace or we're fishing for a bass with a 250-pound line. That's the kind of an analogy that I can think of. So yeah, I throw everything at it, and then see what comes back. My most exciting moments that I've had have been actual physical encounters. They are the ones for me that, if there's no bits of kit that could have picked it up at the time, I couldn't care less whether anybody believed me in that instant or not. But I know when I've had a physical encounter, and it's usually a tug on the clothes that is completely unnatural and inexplicable, or a pull on the hair, or something's touched your arm and you can actually physically feel it touching your arm. And to me, how do you put that into data form? How do you then get a scientist to replicate that kind of encounter? And how do you get a piece of equipment to capture that? I don't know. I'm not a technological person. I don't know whether an SLS actually works or not. I don't know whether, a REM pod works or not. I don't know. I just take it that these things could have some merit, so throw everything at it.
Mm. I think we ought to give ourselves more credit, really, because we do, all of us have supernatural abilities,
Yeah.
and we tend to sort of forget this fact. So people watching, I'm sure, as yourself, Kate, would recognize the feeling of when you go into a room or you go into a haunted place, that suspectedly haunted place, or even in a tube train or a train or a room anywhere. You have a gut feeling. You have a feeling that something's wrong. That person you're talking to is just, there's a gut feeling about them. That's a supernatural ability that we've had that we haven't lost. That's right from caveman days. We still have that, and it still manifests when we are on alert. And a lot of times we're put on alert because of our surroundings dictate that our senses are heightened. It partly is because of our anticipation, because we know that we're told it's a haunted place, so of course we're going to be on edge about it being haunted. But that feeling we get when it gets cold, our skin starts getting the little hairs start standing up, and we get that feeling of scopusepia, of being watched. That is another supernatural ability. All of these things really are indicators, I feel, and I think they go some way. They go a bit further. They go a bit more. They're a bit more intrusive into the veil, much further than a K2 would. Because the one thing which time immemorial, the one thing which has always been testable, and is not so much that the equipment shows a result, it's that we show a result. They tend to always react to us, and they tend to get a reaction from us, not the equipment, from us. Many times people and myself have heard voices. We've heard our name called in a house, and we've sort of shouted, "Did you call one?" "No, I didn't call you." "I could have swore I heard my name being called then." That type of thing. And I think we should put more faith in ourselves than the equipment we use, really, because, like you say, we are really the tool that should be used, because we're the ones which they interact with. They're, whatever these things are we're dealing with, they couldn't give two hoots about a K2 meter. They really couldn't. They couldn't give two hoots about a REM pod. What they could give two hoots about is us. They could give two hoots about, and they're not going to do it on cue, like you said. They're not, but they won't do it on cue. They're not performing animals. What they will do is they'll wait until we switch everything off. We'll turn around to leave, and then they'll tug on your t-shirt, or they'll tug on your dress, because they go, haha, guess what? I was here all the while. So it's us which they're interested in. So I believe really us being a tool should be what, if anything, we should be monitoring ourselves. Blood pressure, our skin moisture, everything really should be monitored of ourselves to see what reaction, see what interaction it has with us. If I had that capability, that would be brilliant. Yeah, so I mean that would be the the best way around it. We're coming up to 1 hour 37 minutes, Kate. Because I was going to keep it at about 1.5 hours. Let's have a look, see if anyone. I think people got some questions. Have we got any questions, please, Rox? Let's have a look. Okay, let's oh, hang on. I'll put this one up. Right, okay. Question from Paranormal Short Sessions. Keith. Hello, Keith. I know you, Keith. Question: do fairies ever react with paranormal equipment? For example, the Ovilus VB. Okay.
Yeah, I do believe I've had some interaction with fairies through various different devices. I think that they are as capable, if not more so, of using because the technology they understand. So if you've got somebody, a spirit from the 1800s, who doesn't keep abreast with recent technologies, who is kind of just stuck in this kind of loop of their era, um, they're not, in my mind, going to be as capable of using bits of equipment that are alien to them. Fairies, however, kind of see us, know us, understand our technology, have, I mean, things like, the gremlin in is it Second World War fighter planes? Was one of the wars. So they keep up with that technology. So I think if anything, fairies are definitely going to be more interactive with paranormal equipment, and they quite like it. I think it adds into the trickster element, doesn't it? Going along and setting a music box off they're going to love that, aren't they? Sort of walk past it and this music starts playing. It's right up their street. So if you've got a interactive music box or something along those lines, yeah, I think they'd love that.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I'm gonna bring up. Let's have a look. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I've got something up here. Let's have a look. Aha. Right. Okay. So this should be coming up now. Here we go. Hare in the Hawthorn. This is your YouTube channel, isn't it, not Kate?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, that's you. So people, if you want to hear more, and she's got lots and lots of it. She does have her own podcast as well. Look, she's got some really cool guests on. Yeah. I see. I'm not on there though. Oh well. Anyway, yeah.
I'll have to get you.
Go.
I'll get you on. I'll get you on.
Yeah. I could talk about Dogman and stuff. You know.
That'd be
And
good.
yeah, I could talk about stuff like that and ghosties and stuff like that. Yeah. I'll just wobble on anyway. I'll ramble on for. Oh,
Me too.
I'm brilliant. Honestly, I could just ramble, cup of tea, vape. I'll just let me go. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Hare in the Hawthorn. For people
Yep.
listening to this, it's on YouTube. And go check it out. It's really cool. And please show some love, you know, because these channels, you know, there's a lot of time and effort put into them, you know. So it'd be really cool if you could show some love for that one. Also, she's got Kate's got a Facebook as well. I'll get that up for you. Let's have a look. If I get it up, let's have a look. Oh, we go. I think this is the one. Hang on a minute. Oh, hang on. There we go. Right. Oh, I'll just do it this way. Hang on, let's have a look. Right, okay. Because I've got the first one up. There we go. There you go. Can you see that? Right. You can see that, can't you, Kate?
I can't. No, I can't. But that's what am I looking for?
Oh, hang on, right. Let me go back to StreamYard and just check. No, you can't. All right, hang on a minute. All right, wait a minute. All right, let me get it up again. Hold on. Right. Okay, let's have a look. Aha. Right, this is it. There. Yeah? No? Can
No,
people see? You still can't see that.
I
That's
can't.
your
But
face.
that just,
That's your
no.
Facebook. Oh, for goodness sake. Honestly. All right, hold on a minute. Okay. There's always a glitch. Don't worry. But people know this channel. They know there's always a bit of a cock up. But you know. Anyway, yeah, check her out on Facebook, which is Kate HareGirl Ray. So yeah, show some love. Follow. That'd be really cool. I'll put the description I'll put the links in the description anyway. That's why I wanted to get it up. Let me try again because you got your book on that one. I want to get your book up. One moment. Let's have a look. See if I can't. Third time lucky. Right. Bear with. Oh, there you go. Wait a minute. Yay, nay.
No.
No. Oh, do you know what? Flipping out. All right. Check out her Facebook and you can see her book there. Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's have a look. Stop screen. Right. Okay. Yeah. Check that out and have a little look. Sorry, Kate. For some reason, it just
That's all
glitched
right.
out. It wouldn't do it. I always try and promote a little bit if I can. Oh, Kate, thank you very, very much indeed. Yeah, Kate, in the comments, check it out. Kate's put the links up as well to the YouTube, and I'm sure she's put the link up, or she will do anyway, for the Facebook as well for Kate Ray as well. Thank you very much, Kate. Right, excellent. So, have you got anything that you'd like to mention at all? Anything coming up?
I've got 4 sort of conferences, talks coming up. I've got Mysterious North, which is with Maria Wheatley, which is going to be awesome. I've got in a couple of weeks, I've got the Three Wishes Fairy Festival, which I'm going to be talking all things gnomes, which is going to be good. and I get to dress up as a gnome for the weekend. So I get to live out my whimsical fantasies of being a gnome. The weekend after that, in September, there is the Strange Days Festival. Now, if you are into anything under the 14 umbrella, whether it's crypto, alien, whatever, if you read 14 times and love all that kind of strange phenomena, Strange Days Festivals is a banger. I absolutely adored it last year. I went to the very first one and was one of the speakers. I've been asked back again. I'm going to be doing a bit of hosting this year there. So I think there's still tickets available, although they will run very, very dry, very, very quickly. And then I've agreed to do the Highland Paracon. I think that's what I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm really sorry. But it's the furthest north paranormal conference in the UK, and that's going to be in November. So I'm hoping that the snow doesn't come down, because that's going to be a tricky journey.
Where's that on? What, Mount Snowdon or somewhere?
No, it's the Hebrides. It's the Outer Hebrides.
No
It's up from.
way.
It's not. It's more north than Inverness. It's going to be spectacular, but it's going to be epic. It's going to be a two-day travel for me to get up there. It's not going to be an easy one, but I'm so looking forward to going to speak for those guys.
Oh my word. Do you know the water comes out the taps like a tan colour?
It doesn't surprise me. Have they got water up there? Have they got
Yeah.
electricity up
Oh
that far?
yeah. Oh yeah, they're not that backward, are they? Oh no. No. There's a base up there as well. I think it's an air force, no, submarine base. I think it's a navy base up that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, oh brilliant. No, that sounds really exciting. Really exciting. Kate, can I ask you something? You know, I've seen you dress up in your gnome stuff. You know, I've
Yep.
seen photos and pictures. Honestly, between you and me, do you actually like get on a bus like that?
I don't get on the bus, no, but I have been seen in public. I mean, this time last year we have something. I live near Sherwood Forest, and we have something called Fantasy in the Forest, and everybody gets dressed up. So it's all kind of different genres. You've got witches, you've got dragon riders, you've got the Whitby Krampus run that come down, and everybody gets dressed up. So I have been known to saunter around, but I quite like having that alter ego. You know, when you're a paranormal investigator and you're kind of steeped in this real kind of dark drudginess, and I work for Barry Guy and his events company, Goes to Find a Paranormal Events, and it's very serious, and it's, you know, it's quite a dark thing to do, isn't it? You know, it's part of the dark tourism. And then I get to dress up as a gnome. I have had a weekend where I've dressed up as a gnome in the day at Three Wishes, then took my gnome hat off, gone to Shepton Mallet, ran a ghost hunt at Shepton Mallet, got about 3 hours kip, then put my gnome stuff on and gone back to Three Wishes Festival the following day, which is just such a tonic. You know,
You're
it is my
hardcore.
tonic.
That is
Yeah,
a hardcore name. That
that
is
is, I
hardcore
was.
name. Dedicated. Honestly,
Yeah.
absolutely dedicated. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. All right. Well, people, I know you've enjoyed it. I can tell by all the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Do appreciate it. Kate, thank you very, very much for your time. And
Been a
do you know,
pleasure.
I'd like to have you on again if that's okay.
Yeah, I'd love to. Love to.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. All right, that sounds like a plan then. Okay, right. From us, I want to say thank you, good night, and yeah, catch you again soon. All right, be careful out there and be good. All right, bye bye.